Hello, welcome to Intuitive Insights. I am your no BS woo woo coach, Meghan McDonough. I am an intuitive guide and a creativity coach. And this podcast, Intuitive Insights, is to do just that share insights that I have found intuitively, experienced intuitively, or collectively through readings or in my own personal experience. So hopefully that you can use them for you. My hope is that in this podcast, through interviews that I do and techniques and reflections, meditations, visualizations, practices that I share, that you can find a way to incorporate flowing with your intuitive self more regularly so you can get and stay unstuck, especially as a creative or, well, just a human, because humans are creative. I really do feel that. I believe we are all intuitive. I believe we are all creative, and that our creative and intuitive are energetic and are creative, which are kind of one and the same in a way, or aspects of each other. Those are part of our whole self-health. So whenever we're showing up and doing the exercise and checking all the boxes, eating all the right things, buying all the right furniture at the right stores and the right outfits and going to the right, activities or whatever. Do you know what I mean? When we've done everything right on paper and yet we still feel a little hollow inside or lost or stuck or blocked, usually, in my experience, it's because the energy, intuitive energy, or the energy in general through creativity or lack thereof is imbalanced or not accessed at all. So today I was actually thinking about, that's my philosophy out the gate. So today what I wanted to share was, I have my little stones here. When I do readings, I grab stones for people, crystals. And usually it's I kind of intuit which crystals, each person their soul is calling me to pull for them. But it also ends up showing me kind of maybe what we're going to explore or what might be on their mind, just based on what the healing energy of the crystals do. Anyway, I just had some on my desk, so I just grabbed them. And so what I wanted to talk about today is when I was in my I was in high school for sure. But what year that was, no idea. Possibly a sophomore. So we're talking like 15, 16 years old. And I was always one of those people that super goofy, but also super deep thinker. When the deep thinker part, this doesn't even right here, would get in my way sometimes. So finding the balance has always been a priority for moi. But I happen to be in one of these deep thinking modes this particular day. And this came back around recently. That's why I'm sharing it now. And what I was contemplating was on the way home from school, my 15-year-old brain is, what is the purpose of life? Like, what are we here for? Why are we on this earth? And I was trying to solve this problem. And so what I came up with is we are here to tell as an acronym, and not necessarily in that order, just that happened to be the acronym that I came up with. And so those TELL, T-E-L-L, obviously, hopefully you know how to spell that. What that acronym stands for is to, again, not in this order, teach, experience, love, and learn. And so I believe the first one would be to experience. And through your experience, hopefully you learn. And I'm just going to throw this out there. So have you ever, please let me know if you have, because I love talking about this type of stuff, and exploring it together, getting the more perspectives you have, the closer of a picture you get to the whole, right? So, and I've had this happen to me many times. If you have a lesson or an experience that keeps coming back, it may have a different shape. It may be different players, but the plot of the play is still the same. That's an experience. And if you don't learn from it, the universe is kind enough to give you an opportunity to learn it, right? And as you refuse to learn or are unaware of the lesson or don't quite grasp it yet, the universe continues to get louder and louder and more direct in its experience, right? I mean, how many of you had that issue where you're like, I don't know, as a people pleaser, right? I'm a people pleaser. And sometimes that's wonderful and sometimes it's inauthentic. Let's be completely honest. It's inauthentic at times, possibly at all times, Kindness and people pleasing get marred and blurred especially in the Midwest, as to what they are. I feel like a lot of us Midwesterners confuse people pleasing with kindness. And sometimes I had this conversation with someone recently and I so appreciated it. Sometimes kindness is just being direct and saying no. Instead of saying what somebody wants or you think somebody wants to hear or they want you to say, And then it's just taking, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. So it's like when you people please and you're saying something that's inauthentic to you or to what they want to hear, because it's off your assumption, you make that line so much longer and you make twists and turns. And it's like, this could have been over in 2 seconds. No, thank you. Do you know what I mean? So experience. And once we experience something, we learn, hopefully. And I'm a firm believer that our souls, prior to embodying a human form, have like a checklist of lessons. Like, this time around in human form, I would really love to learn what compassion means for all, right? And so in your life, you set up general and specific turning points to help you stay on the track of that life lesson. And maybe there's more than one. Once you accomplish that life lesson, what's next on the checklist, right? So once you experience, then you can move on to learning. And then once you learn, then it's like you are responsible. I feel this way. It's almost like you're responsible to share the knowledge. This idea just came to me, but like, can you imagine like if our ancestors who discovered fire, they learned that fire, they had an experience, they learned how to make fire, and then they just kept it to themselves. You know what I mean? Like, there's like a responsibility to share knowledge, not to preach, not to be upset if they don't learn the way you learned, or if they're not ready to experience your lesson, or not even asking for it. But if someone is asking for it, and if someone is open to hearing what it is that you've learned, it's like your soul feels responsible to share, to teach. And then the last one is to love and to experience that love. And when I say love, I don't mean lust, because lust is contained, meaning it has specific boundaries. My lust looks different than your lust, than somebody else's lust, right? What turns you on is specific and limited. Whereas love, the love that I'm speaking about, is general and boundless. And that love, in my opinion, is what our souls are made of. And that when we experience that love fully, we are incorporating our souls into our personality, the infinite with the finite. That is the integration that's gone about in several different ways by a lot of religions. And what they're based on is how to integrate the person, which is the finite, defined, the individual, with the infinite, the soul. The soul is part of the infinite. And the reason I'm bringing this up today is because my son has been questioning, and yes, he can be very dramatic, but he's been questioning what the point of life is. And it brought me back, and this is mostly when he's not getting his way, So it brought me back to this tell thing. Teach, experience, learn, and love. And I thought I'd share it with you today and see if it lights any path forward for you or for others. And so there are 5 ways that you can infiltrate. It's not the right word. That's the word I'm looking for. Embody. That's the word. Embody the tell theory. And that is to be and stay curious. And what I mean by that is a curious mind is not closed to new opportunities or experiences or relationships. A curious mind is always wondering and questioning and wanting to know more. A curious mind is kind of fearless and connected. The curious mind looks for connections. And so one way you could do that is, it's spring right now while I record this. And in Chicago, where I live, my peonies started blooming. And then like last week, the bleeding heart started blooming, and the prairie smoke. And I'm always kind of in this like state of wonder and curiosity when things start to bloom, especially after they looked so dead, like throughout the winter. And they endured so much harshness with the cold and the frozen ground. And yet, like clockwork, the next year they start to bloom again and grow. My son's into birds. So another curious thing I've been doing is listening for bird calls, which I would have never done in a million years, right? Like birds would have not been on my radar. And my sons and his interest have opened me up to this whole other species on this planet that we're sharing with, that is delicate and funny and beautiful, and they all have these gorgeous songs. And so now when I go on walks, I'm listening and I'm curious to how many different kinds of bird calls can I hear. So that's another way you can stay curious. And the hardest way, probably, is when you're in relationship with someone you have a hard time being harmonious with. Be curious as to why. you have a hard time or difficult time being harmonious for yourself. And then curious for them. What is it about that person and where is it in that person that you can find connections with, where you can find harmony? I was just being in my head, I saw a tree. And I'm not saying we have to have harmony with all. It'd be wonderful, right? Sometimes it's harder to find those connections than others. But there is a quote, it's Ram Dass, who said, it's only with the human species that we look at a person and say, why can't you be something else, right? But when you go into nature, you don't look at a elk tree and say, why aren't you a pine? You know what I mean? You just go, oh, that's a very interesting elk. It's a nice representation of an elk. I haven't seen a representation of an elk like that before. Curious, right? Another way that you can implement the tell is track your experiences. So being curious helps you open up to the experience, right? Makes you aware that one is happening or is present in your life. The other is it opens the door, but the other is to accept it and recognize it. And then find the patterns. Treating yourself as a spiritual person, which if you're listening to this, hopefully you are, as a creative person, which if you're listening to this, I know you are, right? Those are both, the spiritual path and the creative path are very much interlinked. They both involve risk, vulnerability, struggle, connection, elevation to the next level, seeking, and problem solving, right? So treat yourself like a science experiment. If this pattern is showing up, am I struggling in the same way in different situations? And what is that? How does that look? So make yourself a science experiment with your experiences to try and extract what's the lesson you're learning. And then the third one is to find the lesson, to treat yourself like the science experiment, find the lesson, what is it, and then implement strategies, problem solve, use your creativity. Problem solving is a very creative skill. Use your problem solving creativity to find a new solution with hopefully your desired result. 4, and this goes along with teaching, is to be the embodiment of that experience and lessons to share with others if they want and need it. I feel like sometimes when we get an answer, we get really excited about learning something, God, my kids do this. Like if they're playing a video game and they learn something about the video game that, my one kid wants to tell the other one and he's so excited to tell her. And she's just like, I don't care. You know what I mean? She's like, can you please shut up? Because I really don't care about this. But he's so excited, he wants to share it. And I feel like that's where a lot of religions go wrong. Because they're like, I feel wonderful. God is amazing. Jesus, whoever it is fantastic. Don't you? And you're like, I didn't ask, And you just assumed a lot of me, and that doesn't feel good. If the person is willing and open to gain from your experiences and your lessons that you've learned, share with grace and detachment from judgment for yourself and for them. It's always nice to ask first and offer. I don't always do that. I try very hard to do that because it's a respect thing, right? A respect of their intelligence emotionally and intellectually, and a respect of their vulnerability and their capacity for it at that moment. And as somebody who has not done that, by accident, not respected those personal boundaries, it feels really crappy because your intention was to help, but the result was hurtful. And that's not what we want, right? So always ask. And detached from the fact that if they don't, it's not personal. It's just where they're at, right? All right. Last one is to love. And the way to love, oh my God, I made that sound like there's only one way. The way to understand, one of the ways, let's put it that way. One of the ways to understand what is love and what is attachment, what is love and what is fear, what is love and what is lust is this connecting myself and the other person or thing, or is this separating myself and the other person or thing or group? Fear separates, love unites. Fear judges, love has no judgment. Lust and fear are finite. Love is infinite. That's it. That's what I got. That's my tell, teach, experience, love, learn, love. That's my teaching of the tell today. Hopefully you asked for it. And if you didn't, thank you for still being here. All right, that's what I got today. That's what I got this week. If you like what you are hearing, nice subscribe, like, share, goes a long way. I heard something this morning about, even if I don't have anything to give, I can always give a smile, a compliment, or like a hug if warranted. The like, share, and subscribe is that for this. So I really do appreciate it. And I appreciate you being here and listening and just sharing today. I'd love to hear if this resonates with you. If the tell approach resonates with you. And or more importantly, if you have any other insights, anything to add on, expand, and grow that philosophy and idea. Again, I was 15 when I came across it. I feel like it still holds up. If you would like a reading, intuitive reading from me or with me, you can find me on magnetizeyourlight.com, on all socials at magnetizeyourlight. And on my website, I have Ignite Your Life. It's a 6-week do-it-your-own course, do-it-your-own pace course that is to ignite creativity and intuition in you, especially if you feel stuck and are looking for some quick, easy, practical tools to liberate your creativity, your intuition and connection to intuition so you can get and stay in flow in life. And we have workshops quarterly. So the next one is coming up in September. You can find that information on there too on MYL Connect. All right. Have a magical, magical day, week, and I will see you soon. Big buckets of love. Make some magic today. Okay. I'm adding this on and I'm leaving in there the big mess up that I had in this episode. How many of you have looked at an elk tree? Because I'm pretty sure that doesn't exist. Elm. It's an elm. Thanks for playing. Make some magic this week.